Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at something that might not sound super exciting at first, but trust me, it's more interesting than you think. We're talking about standards in architecture and construction.
Standards, you say?
Yeah, those guidelines and rules that shape the buildings we live and work in.
Those are everywhere, aren't they? I mean, think about it. Buildings have to meet certain safety codes, energy efficiency requirements, and all sorts of other regulations.
Exactly, and those are all dictated by standards. They're kind of like the invisible framework that makes sure everything works smoothly and safely, of course.
Safety is huge, right? You wouldn't want to live in a building that could collapse at any moment.
Absolutely not. But standards go way beyond just structural safety. Think about things like fire safety, accessibility for people with disabilities, even the materials used in construction. All of that is influenced by standards.
It's almost like a giant puzzle with all these different pieces having to fit together perfectly.
Yeah, and standards are what ensure all those pieces are compatible.
I guess you could say they're the unsung heroes of the built environment. We don't always see them, but they're always there, working behind the scenes.
I like that, unsung heroes.
Yeah.
So, when we talk about standards, it's easy to get bogged down in the technical details, but I think it's important to remember that they reflect broader societal values as well.
Oh, absolutely. Standards aren't just about nuts and bolts, are they? They're also about what we as a society prioritize, things like sustainability, accessibility, and even aesthetics.
Exactly. Take green building, for instance. We've seen a huge surge in interest in LE certification, passive house design, all those things.
Right. And those are all driven by standards, aren't they? LED, for example, has a whole set of standards that buildings have to meet to achieve certification.
And that's changing the way buildings are designed and built, isn't it?
Big time. I mean, just a few decades ago, energy efficiency wasn't nearly as big a concern as it is today.
It's fascinating how those shifts in societal values then translate into tangible changes in the built environment, like a ripple effect.
It really is. And speaking of changes, the rise of technology is another huge factor influencing standards.
Oh, definitely. I'm thinking of BIM building information modeling. That's transforming the way architects and engineers work, and it's definitely impacting standards.
Absolutely. BIM is all about collaboration and data sharing, which requires a whole new level of standardization to ensure everyone is speaking the same language, so to speak.
Right, because you've got architects, engineers, contractors, all working together on these complex digital models. If everyone's using different standards, it would be chaos.
Chaos is a good word for it. So yeah, BIM is pushing the boundaries of what we even consider a standard.
And it's not just BIM. Think about all the smart building technologies that are emerging. Those are going to require new standards as well.
For sure. Like, how do you ensure the security of all that data being collected by a smart building? Or how do you make sure those systems are interoperable with each other?
Those are huge questions, and they're just the tip of the iceberg, really.
And I haven't even mentioned things like 3D printing in construction or the use of robots on building sites.
It's mind-boggling when you think about all the changes that are happening.
And it's all happening so fast.
It's like standards are caught in this whirlwind of technology, changing values, and evolving building practices.
That's a great way to put it.
It makes you wonder what the future holds for standards in architecture.
It's an exciting time to be in this field, that's for sure, because standards will have to adapt to all of this.
Absolutely. So how do we stay ahead of the curve? What trends should we be paying attention to?
Well, one thing that comes to mind is resilience.
Resilience.
Yeah, how buildings can withstand extreme weather events, natural disasters, that kind of thing.
Oh, right. Climate change is making those events more frequent and intense, so buildings need to be able to handle it.
Exactly. And that's going to require new standards for things like structural design, materials, building codes, the whole nine yards.
It's almost like we need to rethink how we build entirely.
In a way, yes. We can't just keep building the same way we have in the past. We need to design for a future that's going to be a lot more unpredictable.
And standards can help us do that.
They're a critical piece of the puzzle, for sure, because standards provide that framework for innovation, right?
Yeah.
They set the bar for what's considered safe and effective, and they give us a roadmap for how to achieve those goals.
So it's not just about reacting to what's already happening. It's about anticipating what might happen in the future and building for that.
Precisely. And that's where things get really interesting. Because we're not just talking about making buildings stronger or more durable, we're also talking about making them more adaptable.
Adaptable. What do you mean by that?
Well, think about how our needs and lifestyles are constantly changing. The way we use buildings today is different from how we used them 50 years ago, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So how can we design buildings that can evolve along with those changing needs? Buildings that can be easily repurposed or modified?
That's a great question. It's like we need buildings that are flexible, that can change with the times.
Exactly. And that concept of flexibility is going to be increasingly important as we move forward because the pace of change is only going to accelerate.
So standards will need to reflect that, right? They'll need to be more agile, more responsive to those changing needs.
Absolutely. We need standards that can keep up with the times, standards that can accommodate new technologies, new materials, new ways of thinking.
It's a lot to think about. But it's exciting, too. It's like we're on the cusp of a whole new era of architecture and construction.
We are. And standards are going to play a key role in shaping that future.
They really are the unsung heroes of the built environment, working quietly behind the scenes to make our buildings safer, more sustainable, more resilient, and more adaptable.
And who knows what the future holds? Maybe we'll have standards for buildings that can grow their own food or buildings that can generate their own energy. The possibilities are endless.
That's a great way to put it. Standards are about pushing the boundaries, constantly striving for something better.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to stay informed about the latest developments in the world of standards. Because it's not just about architects and engineers, it's about all of us. It's about creating a built environment that works for everyone.
So, any final thoughts for our listeners on how they can learn more about standards?
Well, well, there are tons of resources available online. Organizations like the CSA Group and the National Institute of Building Sciences have great websites with all sorts of information on
Yeah,
standards.
those are great starting points. And don't be afraid to reach out to experts in the field, too. Architects, engineers, code officials, they're all dealing with standards on a daily basis, so they can offer valuable insights.
Exactly. And I also encourage people to think critically about the built environment around them.
What do you mean?
Well, next time you're in a building, take a moment to notice the things that are there because of standards. The fire exits, the sprinkler systems, the accessibility features, those are all there for a reason.
That's a great point. It's like a scavenger hunt for standards. See if you can spot all the ways they're shaping the space around you.
Exactly. And think about how those standards are impacting your experience in that building. Are you feeling safe, comfortable? Is the space easy to navigate?
Those are all good questions to ask, because ultimately, standards are about creating a better built environment for everyone.
They really are. And by understanding how standards work, we can all play a role in shaping the future of our cities and towns.
Absolutely. It's been a fascinating conversation today. I feel like I've learned so much about this often overlooked but crucial aspect of architecture and construction.
Me too. It's been a pleasure diving into this topic with you.
Thanks for joining us. And for our listeners, remember to keep an eye out for those standards in your everyday life. They might be invisible, but their impact is all around us. Until next time, keep exploring.